podcast. You texted me earlier. You said totes. And I'm like, I'm not doing this podcast anymore.
I literally almost put Totes McGotes, but I was like, he's not going to come over and record with me. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Nerds You're Looking For podcast, a weekly nerd culture podcast that discusses the culture through various segments. My name, of course, is Patrick Kuhn, alongside my co-host, as always, that Tyler Hunt. How's it going, man?
It's going well, dude. How are you?
Good. Long time no see. I mean, we pretty much hung out all day Saturday, and I haven't seen you since.
That is a goddamn lie. I was over at your house Monday.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Fuck. The review that we're going to talk about in our main topic, I forgot about that. I've repressed that memory, but I guess we'll get into that later. That was awkward.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Review.
But yeah, I mean, we pretty much hung out all day Saturday. It was weird not hanging out for the podcast.
Yeah, it was fun, though. We got to go down to the riverfront here in Evansville and catch some Pokemon.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And it was weird because we went down there and it was hot as hell. It was ridiculous. Yeah. And all of a sudden it was 5:00. It was ridiculous. We were down there for like 3-4 hours. It was stupid. I mean, it was great, but it was just the time flew by. But it was a lot of fun.
I ended up leveling up like 8 or 9 levels last weekend just from going down to the river for a couple times.
And Sunday, we went over to your house, but you weren't there for some reason.
No, you came over to pick up something that you and your wife had left from our adventure Saturday. And I heard Chrissy, I was in the bedroom. I heard Chrissy come in to get it. And I'm like, I like Chrissy, but I'm like, I'm not, like, I'm not going to get up. And then Brittany came back into the bedroom and she's like, that was rude. Pat was in here and you didn't even come say hi. I'm like, I didn't know Pat was in there. Like, I had no idea you were in my house.
What's funny about that is because you had invited me earlier to go back out to the river so we could catch some Pokemon. And honestly, Sunday, we do a lot of stuff like the podcast, the YouTube channel and stuff like that. Sunday is usually kind of my day to do all of that stuff and kind of get caught up. And obviously we're doing our horror short for Shocktober, and that just adds to the list of things that I have to do. And Sunday's kind of my day to do all of that stuff. So I was like, no, I really can't because I have to get caught up and do some stuff. And then Chrissy, it was funny. Chrissy was like, I'm going to go to Tyler's. Do you want to come? I was like, fuck yeah. I was like, I'm going to hit all those Pokestops as you drive by. So that's literally the only reason was you had invited me out to the river and I said no, but I was like, yeah, I'll still go and, hit all those Pokestops, which it's ridiculous because, I mean, she was driving fast, but I'm getting so good at like hitting them at the perfect spot. So I got pretty much all of them as we were driving. On the way back, I don't know, she went a different way and I couldn't get as many and I was pissed about that. But so I still ended up hitting a lot of the Pokestops on Sunday, even though I bailed on your plan. I kind of made my own.
Yeah, it was fun though. It was a good weekend for sure last weekend.
Yeah, for sure. So we start off each episode by kind of just checking in with each other. We call it what we're into. So what are you into this week?
I feel like at a certain point we could probably rename this "What HBO show is Tyler going to talk about this week?" HBO now is just a great thing because there's so much on HBO that you can catch up on. But what I'm watching currently is a new show that just came out called Vice Principals.
I heard about that. I'm intrigued, and then I found out it was on HBO, and I was like, I'll catch it somewhere else.
Not intrigued enough.
Yeah.
So basically what it's about is 2 vice principals played by Danny McBride and Walter Goggins, Neil Gamby, who's played by Danny McBride, and Lee Russell, played by Walter Goggins. They are pining for the newly vacant principal position at the school that they teach at, the high school they teach at. The principal was played by Bill Murray. Ooh.
So there's 2 vice principals.
Yeah,
when you said that, I assumed that they were 2 different high schools.
No, which is weird. They never explain like why there's 2 vice principals or anything. I guess just for the comedic element, obviously, but they never explain why there's 2 vice principals. But obviously, they both want the vacant job, and the school board ends up bringing in an outside person to fill the principal spot, and these 2 characters that hate each other, the 2 vice principals end up kind of forming an alliance to take down the person who got the spot. Basically, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So so did you ever watch Eastbound and Down?
Nope.
So this is brought to us by the same people who created that show, Jody Hill and Danny McBride, obviously, who stars. It's a tad darker than Eastbound and Down, but I wouldn't go as far to call it a dark comedy. There are some definitely some darker moments that happen in the first 2 episodes that have come out. The real standout for me, though, on this show is Walter Goggins. So I'm so used to him playing Boyd Crowder, or he's popped up in a couple Quentin Tarantino movies at this point, playing like a Western character. In this show, he's kind of like a metrosexual teacher, and he's like the first episode and a half, is pretty much assumed that he's gay.
Yeah.
And he ends up having a wife, so unless she's his beard or something, we don't know yet. It's only been 2 episodes. I would consider him to be metrosexual, but he is spot on. He is so good with like his mannerisms and just how he carries himself as this character. It's amazing watching Walter Goggins do that. So I really like that quite a bit. It was really funny. The show doesn't by any chance like get me in stitches or anything. Like I'm not just holding my side from laughing pains whenever I watch it. It's more of a show that kind of makes me smile, but I'm definitely going to keep up with it just to see where it goes. I'm really intrigued to see what happens with these characters. Danny McBride's character, though, it's tough because you kind of feel sorry for him because, his personal life's a wreck. He's divorced and he lives in like this shitty house and so on and so forth. But at the same time, he's a total dick. So it's hard to feel sorry for him. So it's one of those things where there's not a lot of characters that you want to root for, and that's the one thing that it kind of has going against it. But I want to say that this is a mini series and there aren't any other seasons planned because it was originally going to be a movie, and then they decided that they had more material, so they stretched it out to like 8 or 9 episodes. So I don't know if it does well, if they'll end up doing a second season or not. I hope they don't. I hope that this is just a cool standalone 8 to 9 episode story, but we'll see for sure.
Danny McBride is somebody I watched his. What was the kung fu movie called?
Fuck.
I guarantee
something fist, foot fist way.
Yes, and I thought that was really funny, but then I just never stuck with anything else that he's done. I don't know. Yeah, I feel like he's just kind of one note.
Oh, for sure.
But I mean, I've said that with Leslie Jones when we talked about Ghostbusters. Like, if you do that one note well, I mean, it's okay. I mean, if you got that one note down, then I mean, I would like to see him expand his horizons a little bit, but
I mean, he's in the new Prometheus movie, so.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I did not know that.
I think
that's interesting.
He's like the pilot of the ship, so maybe he'll bring something new to the table there, or maybe he'll be
just a comic relief.
Yeah, I guess I don't know.
Yeah, the wisecracker.
Yeah,
you always have to have one of those in the sci-fi movie. So.
For sure.
I'm sure that's his character, but yeah, I just never really stuck with it. Mostly because that show was on Eastbound and Down was on HBO.
Yeah,
so I never really stuck.
I think you'd probably like Eastbound and Down just because it's a baseball show, and I know what a big baseball fan you are. So I'd watch that for sure. I don't know if you'd like Vice Principals or not. If you ever have the opportunity to watch it, give it a shot. But all right, man, what are you into?
I am into something that we actually saw on Saturday. Like I mentioned, we hung out a lot. We didn't just play Pokemon. We actually kind of went on a double date.
Yeah.
Which doesn't happen very often, especially when we want to go see a horror movie. Our wives usually don't go with us. Well, Brittany goes with you. It's hard for me to convince Chrissy to go see a horror movie with us, especially in the theaters. But I convinced her to come with us. It's called Lights Out. It's based on a short film of the same name. Have you ever seen the short?
No, I heard it's like 3 minutes though, and it's really good. It
is really good. I didn't know that until this weirdo, the girl at the movie theater was talking to me and my wife about the short.
The girl at the concession stand?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you know who I'm talking about?
I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah, she was being super creepy about it. But anyways, she told us about it, and of course, I mean, in the credits, it talks about how it's based on that short. And so I watched it a couple of days ago just because I was kind of intrigued by the concept of this movie, and I wanted to kind of see what it was based on, and I thought it was really good. Like, the short is like you said, like 3 minutes long. It's really, really basic, obviously, because it's only 3 minutes long. You kind of have to get to the point. And it's really well done, man. The thing about it is, because it's only 3 minutes long, you don't have to have this whole backstory. It can just be the monster and it terrorizes somebody, and then it basically cuts out and you're done. And that's all it needs to be. It just needs to be scary, quick, and you're done. Well, this movie it's not very long either. I think it's only not even an hour 30. So it's not even that long of a movie, but it felt so long because they gave us all this backstory on this character, and I don't give a shit. Like, every time they were explaining it, I was like, I don't care. Because I thought the concept was really cool. I thought the monster was really cool, but they spent so much time explaining it and giving it all this mythology, and I did not care. And I really liked the short because it's short, and it just kind of gets to the point, and it doesn't give you all of that bullshit. But with a movie, obviously, you have to have that. And I guess they're already working on a sequel, so it was successful enough to do that. And I don't know. It's just weird because I do look at Rotten Tomatoes. Because most horror movies, it's so hard to tell if it's going to be good or not. Because honestly, by the trailer, horror movies, the trailers always look the same. So it's tough. So sometimes, if I'm intrigued by something, I will go to Rotten Tomatoes and kind of see what's what, like see how it's trending. And this was at like an 80% last weekend. Yeah. And I was like, oh man, a really cool horror movie that's not based on, I mean, we saw The Conjuring 2, but that's based on obviously The Conjuring. So we knew it was going to be good going in. This one is just original. I mean, it's based on the short film, but I didn't know that at the time. But it's like this original concept, not based on this franchise, in the summer. And I was like, oh man, a really good horror movie. And I was just let down by this movie. It was just boring.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get my hopes up for it. I had heard it was good, but I went in pretty blind. I hadn't seen any trailers for it. I hadn't actually read any reviews for it. I just heard that it was getting good buzz, and I think that probably helped my experience with it. But I mean, it was a PG-13 horror movie. Yeah. At a certain point, like, I kind of realized it wasn't going to be anything too crazy. I thought that the concept was really cool. Whatever they took from the short story was cool. I don't know. What they did with the backstory was interesting to me because I hadn't seen them do that before. But I do have a question for you. So this is a very small spoiler. It's hinted at the very beginning of the movie though. So there's a relationship between the entity and the mother in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a huge spoiler. You see that in 20 minutes.
Yeah. So if they hadn't explained the backstory explains that relationship, and it was just in this movie there's a relationship between the mother and this entity, but you don't know what it is, would you have been upset that they didn't explain that though?
Yes, but I don't think they had to get as convoluted as they did.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of layers to the I don't know. That's one thing.
There's this whole backstory about this mental institution, and it just keeps going and going, and I just don't think it needed to get that complicated.
At one point, they say that character is not a ghost, but they never explain what she is.
And they're like, it's tied to the mom. I mean, obviously we don't want to spoil too much, but
there's a lot of stuff that they don't explain. They go into length about like the mental institution and different diseases and so on and so forth, which is like kind of created this relationship, but then they don't explain the basic things like why it's there and why it wants to be there. And
well, I think they kind of do, because they mention that when the mom goes through something hard or the family goes through something hard, that's when it appears.
Yeah.
So when she's at her worst, that's where it appears. So I think they do kind of explain that a little bit. But the solution, the final solution is so obvious. And it's just like 30 minutes into the movie, once they kind of peel back the layers a little bit. I thought to myself, okay, I mean, you knew where it was going, and obviously
for sure.
we're being vague to try not to spoil this, because I would suggest going to see this if you're a horror fan, because I do think that it's effectively creepy, especially at the beginning. I thought that scene was really cool. I will say, however, and I've mentioned this before in past horror reviews, I think that horror films have a problem, especially when they're monster films like this one, or ghost films, or whatever you want to call it. When you establish the monster and you see the monster, it kind of takes away the power of it. And so when you have a scene like that, even though it is really cool at the beginning, you're starting to take away that power because it's no longer creepy the more you see it.
Yeah.
And so by the time we got to the end, it was like, especially there's a particular scene with a black light, which I thought was really stupid. I felt like they were running out of scenes to do, shots to do with this monster because they showed it so early. I mean, the very beginning, you see it.
Yeah.
Within 3 minutes of the movie, you see the monster. Really effective, very creepy, but you still have an hour and a half to go.
Yeah. One thing I will give this movie credit for is that it avoided the typical horror movie trope of not believing, like, the kid that sees the monster for half the movie.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there might be a hint of that towards the beginning, but it's extinguished really quickly. Like, most of this movie, everybody's bought in to this entity being real and how they're going to beat it, and is more of the movie as opposed to trying to get somebody to believe in it, which I appreciated.
I did think that the boyfriend bought into it way too easy.
That dude was just horny. That dude was going to buy into anything.
That character seemed ridiculous to me because I would have bailed. I was like, fuck this.
I don't want to, like, close to the climax, there's a part where the entity's going after him, and you almost think for a second he's going to be like, fuck it, and just completely
I'm gone. Deuces.
That was like the smartest thing I've ever seen a character in a horror movie do. I'm like, yes, you run the fuck away.
Yeah, for sure.
You remove yourself from the situation.
Yeah, this is not your fight, dude. 8 months, you're not married to this girl.
We're going to have to talk a little bit off the podcast about this because there's something that happens in the climax that's too big of a spoiler to talk about, but it doesn't make sense to me. Like,
okay, cool.
With the police officers. So the police gets involved in the climax, and fuck it, I'm going to say it. A couple officers lose.
Spoilers.
Yeah, they lose their lives. So how do you explain that whenever, like, at the end of the movie, whenever, like, the rest of the police show up, how do you explain that there's 2 dead cops?
The mom?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, would they throw...
I can't... Well, I mean, we've already put the spoilers tag, and maybe I'll throw something in the show notes. We're going to spoil the shit out of this movie, apparently. So, the mom kills herself, because the entity's tied to her and her mental health. It's already pre-established within the movie that she's depressed, and she's going... I mean, the whole neighborhood apparently knows about it. So, she killed the cops, and then she killed herself. Like, that, if I'm in that situation... You would hate to spoil her name, but she didn't really have a good name to begin with.
Otherwise, you end up in a mental institution.
Or jail, because you killed the cops, because you're the only ones in the house, and the cops are dead, and nobody's going to believe you that it was a motherfucking light ghost. So, yeah, I think that's how I pin it on the mom, for sure.
That thought crossed my mind. I'm like, obviously, you just say the mom did it. But, again, like, you're soiling her name. And that sucks. But do you think
also
twice?
Don't want to go to jail.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that's what the sequel will deal with a little bit, the aftermath of that. If it's something crazy like Teresa Palmer's character in the sequel at the very beginning is like in a mental institution because
another light ghost?
Yes, because nobody believes her.
That's what I'm going to call it now, even though that's kind of the opposite of what it is.
Don't fucking make that movie. Don't make the movie where the ghost gets to come back because now Teresa Palmer is crazy.
I know I say this a lot. We talked about this with what is that damn show? I'm blanking the Aziz show.
Master of None?
Yes. And we talked about it with Stranger Things and how I think when you have a story like this that is interesting, even though it did get complicated and I don't like the mythology and everything. I think with the sequel, it would be cool if they just completely got away from that family and just did it. Not necessarily the same, but something similar. So kind of an anthology type of sequel.
Yeah,
I know I say that a lot, but I think that idea is really cool.
I definitely agree.
All right, so our next segment is just plainly called Comics. Tyler and I read a ton of comics each week, and we like to spotlight one or two. So what'd you read this week?
So we kind of have a Batman theme to this episode. We'll be reviewing The Killing Joke. So I'm going to talk about Nightwing.
Okay.
Number 1.
I actually almost picked this up.
Yeah, I really liked it. So if you remember, it's been a few months, but I talked about Robin War, and the big reveal at the end of Robin War was that basically Damian Wayne, the current Robin, was threatened by the Court of Owls, and to save him, Dick Grayson said, okay, fine, I'll give in, I'll be, I forget what their word for him is, but he's like the chosen one, so he's gonna work for the Court of Owls, which is now the Parliament of Owls, and I hadn't heard anything.
Wouldn't he just be called the Talon?
But he said he has interaction with the Court of Owls in this, or the Parliament of Owls in this comic, and he says he's not a Talon. Like he says, you guys are the ones that wanted me. I'm not one of your Talons, that kind of shit. So that's how they keep it Nightwing. Cool. But it kind of, the way that ended kind of hinted that now Dick Grayson might be an anti-hero. Maybe him and Batman are going to butt heads. I don't know what happened in the Grayson comic between now and where we're at with Nightwing, but it's basically Dick, and I'm going to say Dick a lot in this, so I'm going to need you to try to control yourself.
I almost giggled when you said butt, because I'm a child.
But in this comic, Dick is doing work for the Parliament of Owls so that he can get closer to them to eventually take them down. And I don't know. It's not a bad comic, and I'll get into more of what the story that's going on, but I am disappointed that it didn't kind of follow him being a bit villainous for a while, maybe leading to an interaction between him and Batman where Batman has to take him down or rescue him. Instead, it's more like he's still a spy in a way. So that's a bit disappointing, but this particular issue kind of displayed a lot of the great relationships between Dick Grayson and other members of the Bat family, which is what I love about the character. So there's a scene in the Batcave where Batman is training Damian, and basically Batman in a polite way tells Nightwing to fuck off. Nightwing's asking him for advice, but he wants to do it his way. So Batman says something along the lines of, you want to do it your way, don't ask me for advice, just I trust you, go do it. And it's a really cool scene. There's also a pretty cool scene on a bridge where Dick had called Barbara Gordon to say goodbye to her because the Parliament of Owls is sending him out of the country to Russia to do some owl shit. And that's kind of a cool relationship as well. There's always kind of been like a hint at a love type relationship between the two characters, which is the way it should be. So there's like that romantic vibe, but they're kind of like Bat family as well. So
sure,
that's kind of a tender moment as he says goodbye to her. All in all, I'm pretty excited to see where this comic goes. This particular story arc is called Better Than Batman, and it's revealed at the end of this issue why it's called Better Than Batman, and I'm really intrigued to see how the rest of this story, especially with the Owls, plays out.
So we've pretty much established this through 105 episodes that you read a ton more DC than I do. Currently, I am reading Batman, and I'll be reading, of course, All-Star Batman, written by Scott Snyder, here, I believe, at the end of August, I think it comes out.
Yeah, it's the next few weeks.
Yeah, so I'm really excited for that, and I also read The Flash. I just picked up The Flash, and I'm really enjoying it. So I need you to explain something to me, because I don't read that much DC. From what I understand, from what I at least assumed going into Rebirth, that a lot of these titles were going to start over. I mean, they are starting over as far as the numbers are concerned. But with Batman, it's not starting over, which is great. I mean, you can't reinvent the wheel with Batman.
Yeah.
Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo did such a great job that why would you? You just kind of pick up where they left off. But you read a lot more. Are they doing that with other comics, or are they just kind of picking up where they left off?
So basically, with Rebirth, did you ever read the actual Rebirth comic?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it because I don't want to spoil it.
But so basically, with the New 52, they rolled that out and they wanted to relaunch everyone and start fresh so everybody could jump on. And I didn't realize this because I dug the New 52, but apparently most DC comic fans really disliked it because it did away with this big DC continuity that they had built over decades. And so they kind of basically, when the New 52 started, they erased like 10 years. Yeah. And with Rebirth coming back around, it's basically them putting the 10 years back in.
Yeah. So that's a big thing in Flash right now.
So it's not a relaunch. It's more of a way for them to reestablish the backpedal and reestablish the continuity before New 52 to kind of appease some fans. So I don't, again, like my big question, because I didn't stick with the Grayson comic, is how did Dick Grayson get his identity back? Because in Forever Evil, it's revealed that he's Nightwing, and which is why he goes off and does his spy stuff. Yeah. So I don't know why he's able to have a secret identity again. That's my big question, and I can't seem to find the answer to that. But
maybe they just decided to forget Forever Evil, because I did.
That could be. But that's what's basically going on with Rebirth. It's not a relaunch, it's a reestablishment.
Okay, cool.
All right, man, what'd you read this week?
I was all like set to talk about like Civil War 4 or Civil War 2 issue 4, but I picked up something and I thought it was going to be really interesting. Predator versus Judge Dredd versus Aliens #1. Like I do the New Comic Book Day videos on our YouTube channel, and I always kind of plan out because I have to read ahead. Because, I mean, we get a huge stack of comics each week. And so for those videos, I kind of have to stay read at least to the ones that I'm going to talk about each week. So I am constantly like trying to look ahead. And this is not a title that I even knew was coming out. Like I was just browsing, picking up my titles that I was going to do for the video. And then it just kind of caught my eye. It was literally, I judged a book by its cover and in the best way. A pun intended, by the way, Judge Dredd. Anyways, yeah, I saw the cover and it looked badass, and I was like, that's really awesome. I love that idea. Even though Tyler had a problem with the TMNT Batman crossover earlier this year, just the last few issues, I thought that was really fun, and I was like, maybe I'll like more crossovers. And so these are franchises that I really like, even though I don't like the Alien versus Predator movie so much. I like the idea of them fighting, even though it wasn't done well in those movies. Predators was such a great little relaunch sort of thing that they did a few years back, and I'm a huge fan of the franchise. The Sly Stallone Judge Dredd movie, not so much. But the new Carl Urban Dredd is fantastic. I've talked about that before. It's really underrated. So I'm a huge fan of these 3 franchises. It's a really fun idea. Not quite what I wanted from the comic. I had all these expectations once I read the title and the idea kind of popped in my head. I'm like, man, this is going to be a lot of fun. Because I know a lot of comics, especially these miniseries, because it's a four-part miniseries, a lot of these crossovers kind of like to start big, and then they'll shoot first, ask questions later, sort of thing. Like, so they'll go big with the first issue and kind of scale it back second issue. This book didn't really do that. It kind of established everything in this first issue. They're bringing all these franchises together, and then they kind of include this weird like Island of Dr. Moreau sort of concept thing in there. Like there's a different thread in there as well. So I'm interested to see how it kind of all pulls together. But the cliffhanger in issue 1 has given me enough intrigue to keep with the miniseries, even though, like I said, it's only 4 issues. So even if it ends up being kind of a turd, it's only 4 issues. So
yeah, it sounds intriguing. I don't know that I will take a stab at it, but I actually, you had me at Island of Dr. Moreau. I like that sci-fi story. So
yeah,
that's kind of cool, but I don't think I'll be reading it.
Yeah, it's weird because these are franchises that I do care a lot about. Well, maybe not so much Judge Dredd because I never really read the comic, but Alien and Predator, obviously, I'm a huge fan of those franchises. But we read so much, like Spider-Man, Batman, all these characters that are these huge franchises, and you just know that they're not going to do a ton with. Like, they're not going to change a ton. Like, I'm interested. Don't get me wrong. I'm really interested in comic books. I love comic books. I love these characters, and I think some of the things that they do are really interesting, but they have to be a little bit more subtle with it. So it's kind of fun to pick up a comic. I don't really care because I know it's not going to matter in the canon of all of these franchises. And it's only a miniseries, and I just kind of want to read something that I think is just going to be really fun. And so I thought that that's what this book was going to be. Issue 1 wasn't necessarily that, but I'm hoping that now they got that out of the way, that it's just going to be a lot of fun, the rest of the miniseries.
Awesome, man.
All right. So the next segment is just plainly called Nerd News. Tyler compiles all the big nerd news that happened over the past week, and we just discuss them. So what's nerd news this week?
So I called it last week's nerd news. We recorded on Friday of Comic-Con week, and I called that there'd be a bunch of stuff happen Saturday that we'd have to push back a week to talk about. So that was the case. More so trailers than anything else, but there were some cool reveals at the Marvel panel as well. So we'll go ahead and start with the Blair Witch.
Okay.
So there was a movie coming out in September called The Woods.
Yep.
And it turns out that it is not called The Woods. It is called The Blair Witch.
Yep.
So what is your opinion on the original Blair Witch Project?
Okay, so I have to preface this by saying that I did not see it until like 2 years ago. I watched it first October. I'd never seen it before. I remember when it came out, I think I was in the 5th. No, I was older than that. It had to have been the 6th or 7th grade. I want to say I was in the 7th grade when it came out. And I remember it being such a big deal. Like, people didn't know if it was real.
Yeah.
I mean, there was this huge thing that was made out of it. Kind of very similar to Paranormal Activity, but more so because we had never seen anything like that before. And I don't know, it just got built up over the years so much that when I finally saw it, it was never going to live up to my expectations.
Yeah.
And just the way people talked about it. Maybe if I had seen it when it first came out, it was one of those movies that just kind of fell through the cracks for me. I don't like it. I didn't get it. I thought it was boring. And once it got to the climax, it just didn't do it for me because the whole thing leading up to it was it was boring. And I appreciate that it kind of set the stage for all these other movies. But at this point, I had seen all the other movies and I'd seen it, that style done better. And so, I don't know, it just didn't do it for me. So I don't care about the sequel.
Yeah, so I'm in the same boat as you, kind of. I remember when Blair Witch came out, Blair Witch Project, it was a big deal, and people, like you said, people didn't know if it was real, and it's kind of a disappointing watch, especially later in life, because nothing really happens in that movie. It's more like three people bitching at each other for an hour and a half, and then at the end, shit gets a little crazy, but not too out of control. I think that there is... but I will say, that being said, I'm excited for The Blair Witch, which is coming out in September. I think the trailer... I watched it. Did you watch it?
No, I have no interest in this movie.
The trailer looked good because the Blair Witch mythology is kind of creepy. They just didn't do much with it in that first movie. I think that there is something you can build on there, and the fact that they're tying it back to that original movie. You don't watch the trailer, you don't know. They're tying it back to that original movie. It's basically Heather, one of the characters that goes missing from the first one. Her brother, I don't remember in the trailer how it's brought about, but he hears or thinks that his sister may be alive in the woods, so he gathers some people, and they're going to go out and try to see if his hunch is correct, and they're going to try to find it, and of course, then all hell breaks loose. The fact that, found footage movies have come such a long way, and as well as effects go, like, they're doing a lot more in this movie that they couldn't do back in the 90s, so I'm kind of curious to see what they can do with this mythology they created. The idea of this not really being a ghost, not being a monster, being like maybe like some kind of immortal witch is intriguing to me. So I'm hoping that they kind of explore more of what this entity is. So yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm definitely gonna see it either in September when it comes out, or put it off a couple weeks and watch it in Shocktober.
All right, cool, man. I will just share a real quick funny story. We're talking about found footage, and I mentioned Paranormal Activity. I remember I went to, and I may have told you this story already, Tyler. I went to Coconuts, which is just like a record/movie store.
Yeah.
And I remember we were standing in line, and it was right when Paranormal Activity had come out, and it had come out on Blu-ray. And so it was at the front, like a display for it. And they were selling like the special edition, and it was like director's cut. And I remember there was these teenagers standing behind me, and it was Chrissy and I, my wife, used to love going to this store. So we'd go all the time. It was kind of one thing that we bonded over when we first started dating, was we loved going to this store. And I was just sitting there. They were being so annoying, and I kept rolling my eyes. And then they said something, and I still remember this to this day. He goes, how can you, one of them said, how can you have a director's cut of something that people actually shot themselves?
God.
I looked at Chrissy. I was like, does he think that was real? Like, there was people out there that thought that was real after the Blair Witch Project and everything. Like, people actually still believe that the Paranormal Activity movies are real. That shocked me. He wasn't being ironic.
That's ridiculous, man.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Next, pretty much, well, no, not everything. Never mind. I was going to say everything left is trailers, but that is not the case. Kong Skull Island. There was a trailer released last week for Comic-Con, and they put it online. I didn't know what to expect with this movie. I thought that it would be a period piece, but it seems to take place in modern day.
Yeah. I'm intrigued by it. I kind of like that they're getting away from, like, kind of restarting. It seems like nobody has been able to get away from the original. Like, it seems like they just kind of want to keep trying to remake it.
Yeah.
And this doesn't seem like that's this movie. And so I'm definitely intrigued by that. I was a little bit bummed. I did watch this trailer. I was a little bit bummed that they don't really show you Kong, but I mean, obviously that's done on purpose.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. I'm curious to see. It seems like they started to make this movie and they wrote the script and they were like right at the start of filming, and then they're like, actually, let's put this in the same universe as Godzilla and then do a Godzilla King Kong movie. So I'm curious to see how shoehorned that aspect of it is.
I don't think that the Godzilla thing will even be in it.
I hope not. I hope it's a standalone.
Yeah, cool. I would hope that it would. They establish Godzilla, they establish Kong in this movie, and then they bring them together in their mashup movie.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for, but I don't know if we'll be lucky enough to get that. But we'll see when it comes out next year.
Yep.
Let's talk DC. So we got 2 trailers last week from the DC panel. We got a Wonder Woman trailer, and we got a Justice League kind of trailer, more just footage that they've had time to shoot so far.
It actually, like, everybody's saying, well, it's a teaser trailer. It's not really a teaser trailer. It's a legit trailer. Like, I mean, this like kind of functions. Yeah, it kind of functions as their first official trailer.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it's pretty obvious at this point. Like, I'm the bigger DC fan. Like, I was more forgiving of Batman v Superman than you were. So, needless to say, I was a huge fan of the Wonder Woman trailer. I thought the Wonder Woman trailer was fantastic.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Justice League trailer didn't actually blow me away like the Wonder Woman trailer did. It was good, and I'm excited that they've taken some of the criticisms of Batman v Superman and listened to it and added a little levity to it. But I think everybody's expecting me to say that. I'm curious what you think about it, because I'll be honest, I've not heard anything negative from anyone about the Justice League trailer, and I'm not going to be surprised if you're the one person that it will be.
I think that you're right. I think they did listen to all the criticisms for Batman v Superman, which it kind of gives me hope a little bit for this movie. And they're finally, I guess, admitting that they maybe should have put a little bit more humor into that movie and not just beat you over the head with how depressing it is.
Yeah. But
that being said, they overcorrected, I think. It's really? Like Batman v Superman was just like dark and gritty. We're getting away from the Marvel movies. Those are kids' movies. We're going to make a real grown-up superhero movie. And then nobody liked it. Well, not nobody. Stupid people liked it. I love you, Tyler. Anyways, no, I just say things like that to bust his balls. Anyways, and then they heard all the criticisms, and now they're kind of, at least judging by the trailer, because that's all we have to judge by right now. It seems like they overcorrected, and it's just, there's so much jokes. I liked it. I actually thought it was really funny, but the entire time that they were coming out with this movie, Batman v Superman, and even Man of Steel, way back in the day, it was, we want to make a grown-up superhero movie. We want to get away from the Marvel movies. We want to be the darker, DC's darker. And now you realize that there's a reason why the Marvel movies are as successful as they are. And maybe it's not funny. Maybe it's just as dark, and those are the only jokes that are in the movie, which would be more jokes than that was entire movie of Batman v Superman. So I'd be happy with that. And they're legitimately funny jokes. So I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I think that they just kind of have their wires crossed. The DC universe is not necessarily like this dark, brooding universe, while Marvel is sunshine and rainbows. Batman is dark and brooding, and there's not a lot of comedy in the Batman world because it's a lot of death and depressing things that made him who he is. Characters like the Flash have always been humorous, and there's been levity there. Characters like Superman, there's always been levity there, and that's what they miss with Batman v Superman, is they've made the Superman universe too dark. So the fact that Justice League is coming out and Barry Allen's kind of the wisecracker, like, that's how it's supposed to be.
Sure.
I honestly don't want to see Batman making the jokes like, oh, I hear you talk to fish. Like, that's funny. It made me chuckle, but I don't know that I like the idea of Batman being the one to put the team together either. Like, I get why, because of what happens at the end of Batman v Superman, and he has like this revelation that he's got to unite all these people, but at the same time, like, he's always the one who's kind of resistant to it.
Yeah, and I mean, this is probably a longer conversation than we were planning on having about this trailer, but obviously at this point, spoilers aside, the reason that they stopped fighting in Batman v Superman is all over the internet, so I'm not spoiling anything. I don't think you go from Bruce Wayne goes from killing someone to not killing them and becoming buddies with them because their moms were named Martha.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen. And then I don't think, so they made that leap. And then obviously at the end of Batman v Superman, should I even say it? Like,
I don't think we spoiled Lights Out.
Okay. So if you haven't seen Batman v Superman.
If you haven't seen Batman v Superman and you're listening to this podcast, chances are you're not planning on seeing Batman v Superman.
Maybe you listened to my review and stayed away from it. But Superman dies.
Quote unquote.
Yes, I mean they're going to bring him back for sure. But he dies in that movie, and then we're all supposed to expect that the dark and brooding and just depressed and shoot 'em up Batman that we saw in Batman v Superman is going to all of a sudden be this guy that has all this hope and stuff because of the sacrifice that Superman that happens at the end of that movie. I don't think that those are logical leaps. I don't think the Martha leap was logical, and I don't think the person that we see in Batman v Superman is the same person that you would see in Justice League trailer.
I don't know that it's a logical leap, but if whatever revelation he had gets him away from using guns, murdering people, like, I'm all for it. Anything that they can do story-wise to get away from a Batman that kills, because Batman does not kill. That's like the one rule.
But when you string all these movies together, it's not going to make any sense.
Hopefully one day we'll get the Batman movie that Ben Affleck's directing that was confirmed at Comic-Con, by the way. And it feels like a Batman movie. And I can put Batman v Superman on a back burner. Like, I enjoyed a lot of that movie except for the Batman killing. Like, that's what killed it for me. Like, that's like the one rule of doing Batman is he doesn't kill and he doesn't use guns. And I don't see how you make that that choice with that character. But we're getting a little bit further off the.
Yeah, we're going really long on this trailer. But Wonder Woman was awesome. She was the best part of Batman v Superman.
Oh, yeah.
I thought. I mean, the little that she played in it, and it looks great. I'm really excited for that. I mean, it's not a character that I'm remotely interested in, and they've made it into this really cool movie. Just judging by the trailer, of course.
She kicks ass, man.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
All right, the last thing I want to talk about is the Marvel panel. And there's not a ton to talk about here because they didn't release any of the footage they showed. There wasn't any huge revelations, like a lot of confirmation, more or less. It was confirmed that Michael Keaton's the Vulture.
Yep.
It was, I wouldn't say anything in Guardians of the Galaxy was confirmed, but it was revealed who Kurt Russell's playing. So Kurt Russell is playing Chris Pratt's father, and the character he's playing is Ego the Living Plant.
Yeah.
Who I am not familiar with at all. The picture looks familiar, but basically it's this obscure Marvel character that's basically a plant that's living. And this, I guess, from the descriptions of the footage they showed, he's kind of made himself anamorphically correct, and he kind of was curious what it's like to be a human or something along those lines. So he goes down to Earth and makes Chris Pratt scared, makes Star-Lord. So I don't know. I don't want to get his thing wet. Yeah, I don't have an opinion really because there's no footage to go along with it. Like I have a lot of faith and trust in this movie. Guardians of the Galaxy, I think, stands as my favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe movie still. So
even after Civil War.
Yeah, I think so. I have so much fun with that movie anytime I watch it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I completely agree. It's not a character that I'm super familiar with. But I love James Gunn, man. He's going to make it good.
I'm really curious. So it was also confirmed that it is Baby Groot in this movie, and we had seen they had released a picture of the cast at one point, and Baby Groot is on Drax's shoulder. How does Vin Diesel voice that character in this movie? How do you have Baby Groot with Vin Diesel saying, "I am Groot"?
I don't know, man.
And would Vin Diesel still do it if they're like, all right, you're going to do the lines, but we're going to make your voice higher in post-production?
Probably. I don't know, man.
I'm really, that's like the biggest, I don't have questions about how the story's going to come together in that movie. I'm just curious what Groot's going to be like at this point.
I think that tells you the caliber of an actor Vin Diesel is. We're questioning how he's going to do 3 words.
But it's a baby.
All right.
Cool. That's all I got for nerd news. I don't think anything else of note really came out of the Marvel panel that we can talk about without some footage.
No, I think that's about it, man.
All right. Let's get on to this.
All right. So our main topic changes from episode to episode. We kind of teased it a little bit, spoiled it, whatever you want to say. We're going to be reviewing Batman the Killing Joke. It was released in theaters. They had a Fathom Events thing. Unfortunately, the only theater in Evansville that shows those events is under construction, so they didn't do that, which is super lame. And I'm also going to be missing Planet of the Apes in theaters, the original, so I'm pretty bummed about that as well. But it was also released digitally, so Tyler came over and we cuddled in our little recording studio on my little TV so my wife could watch her stories while we watch this movie. Of course, it's based on the graphic novel by Alan Moore. It will be released on Blu-ray and DVD on August 2nd, so we're kind of doing an advanced review like legit movie critics.
Yeah.
It's animated, if you don't already know. It's voiced, of course, by Kevin Conroy, who does the voice of Batman. Mark Hamill kind of came out of retirement. He kind of retired the Joker for a little bit. He came out of retirement for this movie, and then Tara Strong did Batgirl, who we met at Indie PopCon. Yeah. That was really cool. I got my Batgirl action figure signed by her, which is really cool. Spoiler alert, I wish I liked this movie better after that, but
luckily you got an animated series.
Yeah, for sure. And you can't ruin that for me. But for me, and I think we'll talk about this a little bit later, but for me, this is kind of in the pantheon of Batman stories, The Killing Joke. It was written in 1988, so it's almost 30 years old. I mentioned that in our little intro because I think normally when we do reviews, we try to stay away from spoilers, even though we did spoil Lights Out a little bit. Well, not a little bit. We spoiled the shit out of that movie. But I say that we kind of put restraints on it. there is new material in this movie.
Yep.
It's, 46 pages, something like that, the original graphic novel. So in order to make that a full-length feature, they had to add some original content at the beginning. So I think we stay spoiler-free at the original content, which is going to be tough because I think that's going to be the majority of our conversation. And I think that we spoil the shit out of the rest of it because it's panel for panel, basically the comic book.
That's 30 years old. Yeah.
Yeah, that's almost 30 years old. So I feel like if you haven't read The Killing Joke by now, kind of like if you haven't watched Batman v Superman, what the fuck are you doing right now? So, broad strokes, Tyler. What do you think of The Killing Joke?
Like you said, The Killing Joke is like the upper echelon of Batman stories. Not even just Batman stories, just comic books that have been put out. I mean, you take that story and you add like the most amazing Batman cast ever. How could it be bad?
Yeah. They managed.
Like, I'm very, very, like, if my review of Batman v Superman is any indication, I'm very forgiving of most things.
So forgiving.
Of most things Batman, but I cannot forgive this movie. This is probably the most disappointed I've ever, I wouldn't say ever been with a movie, but definitely this year. The most disappointed with a movie this year that's come out, for sure. I'll definitely elaborate quite a bit in the story section, but basically this is what happens when you fuck too much with source material. Alan Moore consistently goes on record saying that his work can't be adapted properly.
Yeah, literally, one of my notes is I feel bad for Alan Moore.
Like, I've always kind of thought that the way he says that, though, makes him a little bit of a twat. And
total douchebag.
Yeah, but in this case, it's half
League
true.
of Extraordinary Gentlemen was terrible.
Like it's half true, because we'll get into it in the story, but what he contributed to the story for this movie was not done poorly.
No, not at all. I mean, they didn't mess with that.
Everything that was added by I forget the writer's name is Azzarello. I can't remember his first name, but everything he added was piss poor, and I'll get more into that. But obviously, I was not a fan of this movie.
Yeah, like I said, it's like a 50 or a 46-page graphic novel, so they had to add some stuff. And it's weird because it's only like an hour 14, something like that. And it's weird with that runtime to think that this movie's bloated. But it really is. It's almost like you're watching two different movies, because some of the characters in the beginning don't matter. Yeah. There's this villain at the beginning that I've never heard of before. I don't know if that's just me not being the big Batman fan that you are.
I've never heard of him.
And he
Paris France?
Yeah, he doesn't matter after the first little bit. And it just felt like you were watching two different movies. It was the added material, like you said, was just a swing and a miss for me. They could have gone so many different places, and I'll touch on this when we get to story here in a little bit. But I understand what they were trying to do. I just don't agree that it needed to be done that way, and I don't agree with how far they took it. I just feel bad for Alan Moore. Like we said, he's kind of a bit of a douchebag, but
I wouldn't go as far as saying I feel sorry for the guy.
But I mean, he keeps complaining about it, and they keep fucking up his shit.
At this point, I don't think he cares. So I mean, I don't care about Alan Moore's feelings. Like, he wouldn't. If this movie was amazing, he wouldn't support it.
Yeah,
is my ideology around it. So fuck him. I feel more sorry for people that love this book and were so excited for this movie. Like, this was a long time coming, getting Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy. They made it rated R, which was crazy.
Yeah.
Like, everyone, like, there's no way this movie could be bad, right?
Yeah.
And they managed to
You
do
know
that.
who I feel bad for? Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
I know for a long time he kind of pushed this, and he said, I'm not doing Joker again until only if they ever do this. And then he waited, and then they did it, and it's this turd.
Yeah, that's who I feel sorry for. Absolutely, the cast. I feel sorry for him. Kevin Conroy, I mean, this isn't going to taint his legacy at all, but Tara Strong especially, like, she was probably so excited that Batgirl and Barbara Gordon
prominent role,
like has such a prominent role, and It's just misogynistic horseshit.
Yeah, for sure. So let's just dive right into the story. Me personally, I'm going to start with the graphic novel, the stuff that basically I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to start with the stuff that happens at the end. It's beat for beat. I mean, they literally didn't really mess with anything.
Yeah.
I reread it. I've read it a million times, but I reread it just the other day to make sure it was fresh on my mind, which I liked. I mean, don't reinvent the wheel with this. It's one of the best Batman stories ever told. I love how it's not really an action movie. I mean, it's not really an action story. It's more of a psychological thriller. Joker wanting to prove that people are just like him, that you're just kind of one bad day away from being him.
Kind of the ideology around the Joker in The Dark Knight.
My next note is what he tried, the exact same thing that he tries to do to Harvey Dent, which is obviously pulled from this story. It's just such a great Batman story. There is a little Batman Joker battle at the end, sort of, to put a little action in there. And I've always kind of been curious. The gun at the end, like, that was on purpose, right? Like, you gotta think that was on purpose. He didn't really want to kill Batman. On
the page, you would think it's not on purpose, but whenever they put it in the animated movie that we are currently reviewing, he seems genuinely disappointed that the gun doesn't go off.
I feel like that's just a perfect Joker thing to do. Like, I don't think he ever wanted to kill him.
I would hope not. I think that plays better, but I don't think that they captured that in the movie.
Okay. But then the beginning, man, where do I start? Like I said, I understand what they were trying to do because of what happens. I don't know why I'm dancing around it. Barbara Gordon gets shot. She gets paralyzed, and it's not necessarily insinuated. It's basically flat out said that Joker, I don't know if he necessarily, I don't know what you would term it. I don't think he rapes her.
A little molestation. Like, he takes provocative
pictures of
her.
Which I guess you could, I mean, it's all terrible. He's the Joker. He's a psychopath. So, I mean, it's all bad. You don't necessarily need to put a label on it, but it's pretty graphic stuff.
Yeah.
And I know that some people, I'm not in that group, but I know some people have complained that she's just this plot device in the original graphic novel to get these Commissioner Gordon and Batman to be angry, get the men involved. Just kind of a plot device. I never thought that when I read it.
No, I didn't either.
I think that it's assumed that they have this relationship and that Batman cares for her, and he obviously cares for Commissioner Gordon, who cares for his daughter. So I don't think it necessarily needed that. Plus, it's just not well done. Like I said, it felt like you were watching two different movies. It felt like a cartoon, not even like a good cartoon, not even like the Batman animated series. It felt like a shitty cartoon version of Batman, just a really generic Batman story. And then all of a sudden they flipped the switch and you went to the Killing Joke like it's supposed to be. And it just, the tone of it's weird. It just doesn't mesh. And then, of course, there's this big thing that everybody's complaining about that we'll stay away from spoiling on this particular review. But that was just way over the top. And after that happens, it becomes a soap opera. Like, are they together? Are they not together? It got really weird, and I just didn't care. And it bummed me out because I was really excited for this movie, and I almost I shouldn't do this, and I know I shouldn't do this, but I keep a list of all the best movies that I see every year. It makes our best of episode that we do with Matt Hurt from The Obsessive Viewer. He'd kill me if I didn't put that plug in there. But it makes that episode easier because I have the whole list, and I'll have to go through my entire letterbox and try to pick out those movies. And I had a spot for The Killing Joke. Like, I was really excited for this movie because I was like, there's no way that I'm not going to like it. And then they put that beginning in there, and I didn't like it. Like, it bummed me out that by the time I got to the part that I was really excited for, that I've been waiting all these years to see, I didn't care because they basically tainted it.
Yep. I mean, Oh my God. So I made notes for this review last night, and as I wrote the notes, I was getting so heated.
Yeah.
I like this.
Oh, I did the same thing.
The story section notes I have are the longest notes I've ever taken for any movie. So a lot of it echoes what you've already said. I'm going to definitely try to keep it short and sweet, but there's just so much wrong with this movie. I think, like you said, the Killing Joke, the actual adaptation of the Killing Joke works up until the very end. I wasn't going to spoil it, but since you said we're allowed to spoil the Killing Joke graphic novel, the end of the graphic novel is it's kind of left up to the reader what happens.
Yep.
So basically, how it plays out in the movie is, Joker tells a joke and him and Batman start laughing, and then all of a sudden in the book, the laughter just stops, and a lot of people. It's kind of split. Most people think that Batman kills the Joker at the end of it because there's this whole thing of Joker's too far gone at this point.
Yeah.
Like he'll save so many more people by just killing him, and it's like that one big decision Batman's never done. People seem to like to think that he did it in the Killing Joke. That does not play off in the movie as well as it does in the book. The laughter between the two characters is really cheesy, and the way that it ends doesn't leave it up to the viewer to decide what happens. It kind of plays out like they laugh together and then the movie's over.
Yeah.
So they couldn't really put that on screen as well as they put that on the page. So up until that point, though, the Killing Joke adaptation of this movie was really spot on. I mean, it's hard to fuck it up because you did it panel by panel. You used the exact script, the exact wording that's used in the comics. Like, you can't fuck that up because it's already renowned and it's already good. So that was done well. But again, everything that's added is not great. I hate to echo what everyone else is saying, but everything that's wrong with this movie is what was added. The lame stuff between Batman and Batgirl that we'll stay away from, that starts the movie out. There's a lame villain for half the movie that you already talked about, Paris Franz, who is not only a terrible villain, but he has terrible dialogue, a terrible name, terrible voice acting. Like, everything about that character is awful. And like the dialogue that was added for any character for this first half of the movie, like Brian Azzarello, who wrote this movie, I just have no respect for him as a writer. Like, nothing in this movie that was added is good. I don't know. I'll wrap it up there because I think that you said a lot of stuff that I was going to echo anyways. But a lot of people, like you said, with the Killing Joke, thought it was misogynistic because of what it does to Babs. And, whenever Endgame was going on, they had a lot of variant covers for the comics at the time.
Yeah, I remember talking about that.
And one of them was Batgirl, and it was echoing like some of the stuff that, like, it was basically Batgirl with Joker with his hands around her.
Yeah.
And a gun pointed to her head. And that was supposed to be like a throwback to the Killing Joke, and people were so upset with it that they ended up not making that cover. So obviously there's kind of a split between what people think of this comic, and they were able to take what was already kind of, some people labeled misogynistic. Again, I don't, you don't, but a lot of people do. They were able to make it more misogynistic.
It was weird. They were trying to backpedal, but they just made it worse.
They made it much worse. They thought that they were going to make it better by adding more with Barbara to make you care about her more and care about what ends up happening to her more, but they made her even more of a lame female character instead of a strong, independent female character.
More of a stereotype.
Exactly. Thank you. Much more than a stereotype. So that's all I'm going to say about the story. Like, obviously, I think they really fucked it up. They should have just done like a 30-minute adaptation of the Killing Joke, and people would have been happy. But
I don't think so. I think you could add stuff. I think they did the Killing Joke well. Like, that part, I mean, you just don't mess with it. They did exactly. I mean, the ending, of course, is kind of tough because the ending of the graphic novel kind of leads you to infer what you want to infer. And it's tough to do that sometimes, especially with the animation. It's tough to do it. I don't think that Kevin Conroy did necessarily a best job with the laugh. That was really bad. I mean, I know it's sacrilegious to say anything bad about him, but yeah, that wasn't his best performance. But I think that there's things that you could do to add. I just don't agree with the route that they took. And then, like we said, they tried to backpedal and they just made it worse. I don't know. There's so many other things that they could have done, pulled from others. I mean, I guess you don't really want to pull from other stories, but I mean, you could always just use that as inspiration or something. I don't know. Do something else, man. There's 100 other things they could have done to make this movie better. And I mean, they've admitted that they only did that beginning part to make it a full length movie. Yeah. Which I mean, obviously, because you can't. I don't think they make this movie if it's just 30 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been. I think it would have been better.
I mean, it would have been better. We wouldn't have hated it.
There's definitely stuff they could have done to add to it that would have been better than what they ended up doing. But at its core, I don't think people want the Killing Joke messed with. So they would have been better off just making it short and sweet. Yeah.
So normally we go from story to performances. With this, it kind of feels weird because I mean, all these characters, all these voice actors, because again, it's animation, have done these characters so much that it's kind of silly. I mean, I guess we kind of already touched on Kevin Conroy. I mean, he's awesome. He's done Batman forever. That laugh notwithstanding. But, I mean, Tara Strong did a good job, even though her dialogue was terrible. I thought Ray Wise did a pretty good job. I like him from Reaper, so I thought he did a really good job as Commissioner Gordon. Other than that, there wasn't too many standouts.
Only complaint I have, I already mentioned, a guy named Maurice Sterling did Paris Franz.
Yeah, that was garbage. But that whole character, there's nothing about him that was really likable.
But besides that, like everybody, like the Trinity there, Tara Strong, Mark Hamill, and Kevin Conroy have done this for the better part of 20 years at this point, or over 20 years at this point, and are one with the characters. So, of course, they were going to deliver a good performance.
There wasn't a ton of action in this movie. Like we said, at the end, there's a little bit more between Batman and Joker before the very end. So there's not a ton to talk about that. I did like, one of the only things that I liked about the beginning is when Batgirl does have to defend herself at a certain point. I thought it was very cool the way they did it. It was kind of a brawler type of. I know nothing about fighting, so I don't know why I'm trying to describe it, but I thought that was pretty cool. The animation was kind of disappointing, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the animation wasn't bad, but it didn't click together very well. And there was a scene in the actual Killing Joke adaptation part where Batman's at the carnival and there's a carousel. Yeah. And the carousel looked noticeably like CGI'd into what was the rest of it was 2D animation.
Yeah.
Like that took me out of it. And then this isn't on anybody associated with this movie. It's on Brian Boland, the artist of the Killing Joke, but I don't like Batman's long ears. That's just a personal preference.
Yeah.
Like his ears are almost distractingly long in this.
I don't know. It seemed too cartoony for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's weird though, because it's rated R. So it's like, it almost felt like they were making what they thought was like a really dark movie, but then they made it in a cartoon way. It was just really weird. It's like, well, it's an animated movie, so we might as well make it for kids, but you're not making it for kids because it's rated R. It was just really weird.
Yeah, I agree.
And maybe this was just me, but the mouths didn't seem like it. They did a very good job of kind of making it sound like they were saying the words that were coming out. It was just really weird. I thought the animation was subpar.
Yeah, I'll agree.
All right, I mean, that's pretty much all I have. It's kind of tough. This movie wasn't very long, and it's animation, so it's tough to talk about like performances and acting and all that good stuff. So
yeah, for sure.
I mean, that's all I have. I mean, the story was our main beef with this movie. I, like you, hated this movie the more I thought about it. So I'm curious to see what your star rating is.
Okay. I am going to give this a 2.
Okay.
And I'm only giving it a 2 and not less because of the respect I have for the cast.
I'm giving it 2.5. I actually originally gave it a 3 because we kind of have already established this over 105 episodes, and we do a ton of movie reviews. We've always said that 3 is the bare minimum we would say to recommend something.
Yeah.
And I wanted to recommend this even though the beginning is garbage, just pure garbage. The last half an hour is beat for beat. I mean, almost panel for panel. You're seeing the graphic novel come to life. And I love that story so much that I wanted to recommend it. But then I started at my notes. I always put it on my notes and I put the star rating right next to it. And then typically I'll just do it right then. I'll just put the star rating and then I'll just start making my notes. And then sometimes it goes down, sometimes it goes up, depending on how I start feeling out my notes. It went down. It was started at a 3 because I wanted to give it a really soft recommendation. But no, this is a turd.
I'd rather just recommend the graphic novel.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, don't bother with this.
Use your imagination.
Yeah, don't bother with this horse shit. Read this.
Yeah, for sure. So that's it for the Killing Joke review. Of course, you can check out all of our reviews on our website, thenerdspodcast.com. Click on the Nerd Reviews tab, and you can see what our star rating for every movie we have ever reviewed. I don't think I've ever pimped that before. It does take me a little bit of time to put that together, so definitely check that out.
I've gone back and looked through that just out of curiosity.
Yeah. I kind of pat myself on the back for that idea. I like that idea a lot.
I do as well. It's really good.
All right, so the next segment, we kind of like to cap off each episode by asking each other a very nerdy question. We take turns asking each other what our favorite blank is. We take turns kind of picking the subject, and it is Tyler's week. So what's nerd favorite this week?
So to get that bad taste out of our mouth, let's talk about something Batman related we love. So I want to know, and I have no idea where you're going to go with this. I want to know what your favorite Batman storyline is. So from the comics, just a storyline that you favor. So mine, like everybody's typically, is Dark Knight Returns. And who doesn't like The Dark Knight Returns? I'm going to go with the other Frank Miller comic, though, Batman Year One. I love it so much. And you want to talk about a good adaptation, an animated adaptation of a comic, watch the Batman Year One animated adaptation. It's really great stuff.
Yeah, it really is.
Batman Begins pulls a lot from that, and I think that that's an underrated movie from the Dark Knight trilogy. People typically list that last, but it pulls all the right things from it. So you get to see Bruce Wayne becoming Batman. There's so many quotable lines, like he's feared, he's a badass, like nobody knows what this character is yet. There's no really main villains in it, like Catwoman's in it, but besides that, you don't have the Joker, you don't have the Riddler, you don't have Penguin, you don't have anything like that. It's more of him taking down mob bosses and kind of taking back Gotham and him developing a relationship with Jim Gordon. And all of it's so great. And then, of course, the last panel is Jim Gordon alluding to the Joker, which was borrowed heavily for Batman Begins. It's a great comic. If anybody ever comes to me asking, well, what should I start with? That's what I tell them to start with. Batman Year One is my Bible. It's a great book for sure.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I completely agree. For the sake of conversation, obviously, I'll pick something else. Would be my answer. I always hear The Dark Knight Returns, and I'm like, I like Year One more. Honestly, I mean, I'd like to put Killing Joke up there as well, but it's so short.
Yeah, it
doesn't necessarily need to be any longer. Unfortunately, they made it longer, but I'd like to put that up there, and I really wish that I had like this hipster answer, like a really obscure Batman story, but you gotta go Dark Knight Returns, man. I think you have to. I mean, for sake of conversation, I'm gonna go with Dark Knight Returns. Year One would be my pick normally. I love the fact that he kicks the shit out of Superman. That's awesome. But not just that. I like the idea of an older Superman. Or not Superman, Batman. I like the idea of, and I think I've mentioned this before on past episodes. I like the idea of a vulnerable superhero, and Batman's the perfect kind of character to do that because he's not really a superhero. He's just a rich guy that can kick some ass, and so obviously eventually he's going to get old and he's going to wear down. And I just like that idea, and I thought that was really cool that Frank Miller decided to do that. And, of course, he's a great writer, so he did it so well.
Yeah, and I mean, everybody looks back on that and still thinks it's one of the greatest Batman stories of all time, but it was way before its time as well.
For sure.
Like the darkness and kind of making Batman that dark brooding character he was one of the first writers to really do that. So I think that's kind of why it sticks out to this day.
Yeah, for sure. And we failed to mention that Tyler is actually wearing his Joker Killing Joke shirt on purpose, of course.
Yeah, I wore my Killing Joke shirt even though I hated the movie. Like, you gotta love the graphic novel.
I love that shirt, by the way. I'm jealous.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
Even though that no one can see that.
It's probably one of the more iconic panels from that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
From that comic.
All right, so that is episode 105 of the Nerds You're Looking For podcast. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at the Nerds Podcast. Maybe Tyler will Instagram his shirt.
I guess I have to at this point. Now the weird part is, do I Instagram it now or do I wait till Monday when the podcast is released so people don't have to scroll through our feed? I don't know.
I think this is probably the part of the conversation we could do this after I do the outro. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Google+, vote for us for a podcast of the month at podcastland.com, comment and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out our new Twitch channel. Tyler does a weekly stream Monday at 9 p.m. Central. Rate, review us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, basically any good podcatcher you use. We're on it. That really helps us out. We really appreciate that. Email us at thenerdsyou'relooking4@gmail.com. You can check me out personally. My stand-up, I have a show at Bear's Place in Bloomington, Indiana on August 15th.
Goddamn love Bear's Place.
Yeah, I've oh my God, that's such a fun room. I love doing shows there. It's a Monday night. I got to drive to and from Bloomington, but I can't wait. I'm going to be super tired the next day at work, but it's going to be totally worth it. Totes McGotes.
God damn it!
I only said that to goat you. Anyways,
no, I'm this. You texted me earlier. You said totes. And I'm like, I'm not doing this podcast anymore.
I literally almost put Totes McGotes, but I was like, he's not going to come over and record with me. Also, to plug my other show, it's August 22nd. I'm featuring for a touring comedian at Shorty and Green River Road. They just opened a new location on Green River Road here in Evansville, and I'm really looking forward to that show. So you can check me out there. For Patrick Kuhn,
Tyler Hunt,
we are the Nerds You're Looking For. Take it easy, guys.
See you guys.